Market is showing blood red. Like we can just see everything is down except Pepe. And no, my next point doesn't mean go and buy Pepe. But what I'm saying is that you need to be looking at projects that haven't actually drawn down as much as others, because that means that a lot of people have buy orders for this project and a lot more people are coming into this project. So if these projects haven't drawn down as much, it kind of gives the idea that they have the potential to rise much further, because the interest in this project is still very much holding it up, as well as a lot of new people entering that project. And one of those projects is actually Render. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about why Render is a good project, kind of how the project is growing, and sort of what I think is going to happen for Render in the future, along with some things that are kind of developing in that ecosystem. But anyway, guys, if you want to support me, just subscribe. It's absolutely free. And I also have a Telegram group where absolutely nothing is happening right now. But if I ever do something that's paid, the first 100 members in that group will get free access forever, just an incentive. And I'll start to look to share some information in that group, or just basically build some conversation with you guys once it gets a little bit bigger. So just something to keep in mind. But if we take a look at the Render price, we can see that like many other cryptos, it has tanked quite a lot. We tanked from the peak of around $12 back down to $8, which is a 50% drawdown, but we're only wiping off back to early March, which realistically is just over a month. And I know it feels like a lot, but that's not very much time that we've actually pulled back on. If you actually compare this to other projects, and I'm not saying that any of these other projects are bad, because I actually really like these two projects. I just kind of wanted to just show the difference. I love ICP. I do a lot of videos on ICP. I think it's a great project. It's still a lot more in its infancy, and it is just basically draw back on all of its gains, essentially pretty much back down to where it was before. And we can see the same for Filecoin. It's pretty much wiped off all of those gains here. And a lot of this was just kind of built on momentum, right? Everyone thought that rate cuts are coming. Everyone thought the economy was just sort of speeding up. And it might not be down to that perfectly, but we were sort of building that momentum. Everything was kind of growing. But Bitcoin price stagnated. So again, we just kind of lost that momentum. Now that inflation's kind of peaked a bit higher, people kind of expecting rate cuts a little bit later. And I kind of went over this in my last video, but we basically lost a lot of the momentum and catalyst. So people were just afraid, and they're just kind of leaving a lot of cryptos because they don't want to be left holding the bag, because people have a lot of PTSD from last time where they were left holding the bag for 2 to 3 years. So as soon as a bit of bad news comes out, people start selling, and then a lot of people get liquidated because they're heavily leveraged, or they just have options that are set up way up here and it's just gone against them and they've gone liquidated. But if we take a look at this, right, we've basically wiped out all of the gains on Filecoin back to February where we started. But even still, like, we're going back to sort of December rates. So if you've been holding Filecoin, again, a project I really like, I do a lot of videos on this. I still think it is the future of DeFi storage, but it's not having a good day, right? It's not having a good year, really. It hasn't really came to much from there. If you bought here, you pretty much break even now. Same with ICP, kind of wiped out pretty much back until January, which is sad, but if you got in here, happy days. Solana, similar-ish story to Render, really. And again, that's just because obviously there's a lot of belief in Solana. As it comes down, people have buy orders and it pushes the price back up because people are just buying as it goes down. And Render is one of those cryptos, the altcoins particularly, that has actually held its price very well. And this is down to a lot of factors, and probably a lot of you know this, but Render is much further ahead than a lot of these other projects. Obviously, Internet Computer still in its infancy, still got a lot to grow, so its price is very arbitrary in a sense. There isn't huge tenable value in that respect. Obviously, it has a lot of value, there's doing a lot, but you can't really put its price on much. But Render just keeps getting integrated into other areas in that respect, and the network is massively growing. If you look at my other videos, you'll see that Filecoin revenue is kind of struggling because the project is hard to use. They need a lot more development to go, but Render's in a good place right now. And actually a few things kind of point this out. So one thing, if you look at Token Terminal, we can see that the token holders, despite the market cap and everything else going down, we can see token holders have massively increased. We can see the same on Dune.com here. So we can see that the Render holders has actually just been skyrocketing. So perhaps people who were up here have thinned their positions, and maybe sold off a bit just because they were a bit worried, but they still have some holdings. Whereas people were waiting to get in because they felt the price was too high. And this number just keeps increasing because people are executing those buy orders because the price has come down to a price that they have set, something they feel comfortable buying in. So the interest is rapidly growing, and that's what's holding Render's price up. And that's just a good sign of a coin that has a lot to run in this bull market. And I'm not saying, again, Internet Computer Filecoin don't, but I feel like Render maybe has more of a potential to run much higher than these other coins because that interest is growing much quicker. And the same is true if we look at their Twitter scores. We can see Render Twitter score is rapidly increasing. From March to April, it gained 15,000 followers on 165k. That was going up by 10% each month. Even here, we're still seeing huge gains. We can actually see the gains starting to increase much further. So we went up 13k here, 9k there. That's right, yeah, 9k. Good maths. Thanks, guys. 9k there, but now we're starting to see 15k increases, which is kind of huge. So if we take a look at something like ICP, and I'm not shitting on ICP in this video, I do like it a lot, but we can see the growth is smaller, albeit is actually still growing, which is good. We can see followers gaining around like 2k some months. This month, not as many. But that's just because Render is in two narratives which are the hottest narratives in this bull market, AI and Depin. Depin is growing rapidly, and I think it's going to outpace a lot of things because it needs to kind of supply the AI market. And if you don't know, Depin is decentralized infrastructure, and essentially that just means, well, it pretty much is the whole Render project, so you kind of know what it is, but just infrastructure where it's just decentralized in the cloud, so you can just tack onto that infrastructure whenever you need and as much as you need. Essentially similar to the cloud data that we use right now. You can pretty much get as much storage you like online. You don't have to just rip your hard drive out and stick a new one in. Kind of great, right? If you've got a shit processor and your computer can't do much, you can just log onto the Render platform and just use that processing power. But also seen things about Apple's integration of Render into the Apple Vision Pro. And again, that's probably because the Apple Vision Pro is quite small. You can't fit a lot of power into that. So if they can integrate online with the Render network, they can just render things online and then just download that to the Apple Vision Pro and just reduce the amount of power that the Apple Vision Pro would need to use, because you probably have to have like some massive helmet with a huge computer in it to be able to render amazing things. So by integrating with the Render network just through the cloud, they can potentially render awesome stuff. But Apple, as we know, is quite secretive with a lot of things, and this is still very in its infancy. But these kind of partnerships, as well as the Render CEO standing up in the NVIDIA conference, kind of gives us an idea that a lot is going on behind the scenes, and people are kind of betting on this. You've got these huge corporations partnering up with Render because essentially, if you take the crypto out of this, they still have an amazing product that they can basically sell to a lot of people. But if you look at ICP, for example, they're trying to build an ecosystem within themselves, and that kind of keeps out all of these big companies because their goal is to essentially build away from these big companies. So Render's kind of poised to do very good things with these companies, and I believe a lot of this will start to drive the price up massively because they are in a great position, right? They've got all this infrastructure that's growing, and this could pave the way for big investors to start coming into Render as crypto becomes much more friendly to institutional investors in general. They're going to start to look to the crypto projects that they believe are going to have a lot of influence in the real world. Something like Render is going to be top of that list. So I feel like a lot of people are still believing that big money is going to come into these crypto spaces. And some of that might trickle down to these amazing projects such as Render, which they have partnered with a lot of AI firms to even deliver this infrastructure on a wider scale than they personally can offer. So I think if anywhere to hold your money, just looking at projects that are holding their value, there may be others that Render that most certainly is, but this is what this video is about. So you want to just be looking at projects that haven't actually gone down as much, because these are going to be signs that these probably have the most to run in this bull market. And I still kind of have a price target, I'd say around $40 to $50 on this, so it kind of gives you a much bigger return than a lot of other altcoins out there. And just even in the long term, you still have much higher potential. If you like this video, guys, like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.